Hey guys, welcome back to the Readers. I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. So this happened recently enough that I feel comfortable sharing it now. It was October 2022, and I was cruising around listening to As It Was by Harry Styles, searching for an affordable apartment. I stumbled across this amazing deal on Facebook Marketplace and scheduled a viewing right away. The landlady, Miss Thompson, met me outside. She was a heavy-set woman with a severe black bob haircut that reminded me of an old-school pin-up model. Her fake smile didn't reach her eyes as she showed me around. "When can I move in?" I asked, trying to ignore the musty smell and peeling wallpaper. "Well, if you want it, you'll need to put down a deposit today," she replied, tapping her foot impatiently. "There are other people interested." "How much?" $750. Half month's rent. The place wasn't great, but the price was right. "Deal," I said. I rushed to my bank, withdrew the cash, and met her back at the apartment. We signed a standard lease agreement, and I asked about the keys. "Oh, the current tenant is still moving out some things," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "Give me a couple of days." I was crashing at my friend Mike's place anyway, so I figured no big deal. I spent the next few days exploring my new city, but after a week of no contact, I started getting worried. "Hey, Miss Thompson," I left my fifth voicemail. "I really need to know when I can move in. Please call me back." Finally, she left a message. "Sorry, but I can't rent the place to you after all. I did my research and discovered that in my state, if someone breaks a lease without legal cause, they owe double the deposit. That meant she owed me $1,500. More calls, more emails, nothing but silence. I had a new job starting at the beginning of November, but I had some free time. So one morning, I planted myself at the coffee shop across from the house. After 3 hours and 4 lattes, I hit pay dirt. There she was, showing the same unit to another potential victim. I waited until the couple left, then walked over. "Miss Thompson," I called out. Her face dropped. The previous tenant." "Save it," I cut her off. "According to state law, you owe me double my deposit, $1,500. I want it today, or I'm going straight to the police." "You can't do this to me," she sputtered. "Watch me." She turned pale, muttered something about waiting, and disappeared upstairs. 5 minutes later, she came back with a crumpled wad of cash. "Here, take it!" She shoved the money at me. "You're ruining everything." I counted it carefully. "Have a nice day," I said, and walked away. A week later, my phone buzzed. It was Mike. "Dude, turn on the news. Isn't that your crazy landlady?" Sure enough, Miss Thompson had been running this scam on multiple people simultaneously. I felt sick. Had I taken someone else's deposit money? At the police station, there was a line of distraught people filing reports. When it was my turn, I told the officer everything. "Honestly," the officer said, "you're the only one who stood up to her legally. That money's yours." As I was leaving, a young woman stopped me. "Hey, did you actually get your money back from her?" "Actually," I replied, "I got double." She stared at me for a moment before breaking into a huge grin. "Everyone listen up! This guy got double his deposit back!" The whole room erupted in applause. Even the officers were smiling. In that moment, all of us, must have been 20 people, shared this weird, wonderful feeling of justice being served, even if just a little bit. I walked out with my head high, knowing I'd earned every penny of that scammer's cash. The next one is an entitled People story. I never thought I'd have to deal with an homeowners association since I don't even live in one, but here we are. This has been going on for about 8 months now, and I think it's finally reaching its conclusion, so I wanted to share my story. I bought my house about 3 years ago. It's a nice 2-acre property that sits right next to an homeowners association neighborhood called Oak Grove Estates. My property was actually part of an old farm that was subdivided decades ago, long before Oak Grove Estates was developed. I did my due diligence before buying, had the title searched, got a survey done. Everything checked out perfectly. The problem started when Oak Grove Estates got a new homeowners association board last year. About 2 weeks after the new board took over, I found a violation notice stuck in my mailbox claiming my grass was too long and I needed to mow it within 48 hours or face a $100 fine. I immediately called the number on the notice and spoke to Karen. Yes, that's really her name. The new Homeowners Association president. "Hi, I got this violation notice, but there must be some mistake. I'm not part of Oak Grove Estates," I explained. "Of course you are," Karen said dismissively. "Your property borders our development and falls under our jurisdiction." "No, it doesn't. My property was never part of the development. I have the deed and surveys to prove it." "Well, we've expanded our coverage area. You'll need to comply with our regulations now." I tried not to laugh. That's not how this works. You can't just decide to expand your coverage area onto my private property. I'm not a member of your homeowners association and never signed any homeowners association agreement. We'll see about that, she said and hung up. I figured that would be the end of it. After all, they had no legal authority over my property. I was wrong. A few days later, I heard a knock at my door around 8 p.m. It was 2 police officers. "Good evening, sir. We received a complaint about a code violation at this address," one officer said. "Let me guess. The homeowners association next door called you?" "Yes, they reported an ongoing issue with property maintenance and claimed you're refusing to comply with regulations. I invited the officers in and showed them my property deeds, survey, and title insurance documentation. I explained the situation with the homeowners association. As you can see, my property has nothing to do with Oak Grove Estates. They have no authority here. The officers were very understanding once they saw the documentation. We'll let them know this isn't under their jurisdiction. Sorry for bothering you." I thought that would settle things. Nope. Over the next few weeks, I got violation notices for having a vegetable garden in my front yard, parking my work truck in my driveway, not getting architectural approval for a new shed, which I built myself on my property, having chickens. I have 6 hens in a nice coop, not paying homeowners association dues, which I never owed them. Each time I got a notice, I called or emailed explaining that I wasn't part of their homeowners association. Each time they ignored me and escalated the fines. Then the police visits started happening regularly. The homeowners association would call in complaints about various violations, and the police were obligated to respond. Sometimes they'd show up at ridiculous hours, 10 p.m. on a Tuesday, 7 a.m. on a Sunday. The officers were always professional, but I could tell they were getting frustrated about being used as the homeowners association's personal harassment service. After the 6th police visit in 2 weeks, one officer sat down with me to review the situation. "Look, we know you're not under their jurisdiction, but they keep calling in complaints. Would you be willing to file a harassment report? That might help stop this." I agreed and filed a formal complaint detailing all the false reports and harassment. I also started documenting everything, taking photos of every violation notice, recording dates and times of police visits, saving all email correspondence with the homeowners association. The breaking point came when I arrived home one day to find 2 guys from a lawn service in my yard getting ready to mow. "What are you doing on my property?" I demanded. "Homeowners association hired us to take care of the violations," one guy said, showing me a work order from Oak Grove Estates. "Get off my property right now. This is trespassing." They left, but I was furious. This had gone from annoying to criminal trespassing. I called my lawyer. My lawyer sent the Homeowners Association Board a formal cease and desist letter, including copies of all my documentation proving my property wasn't part of their development. He made it clear that any further harassment would result in legal action. Their response? They sent me another violation notice the very next day. "That's it," my lawyer said. "Time to file suit." We filed a lawsuit against the Homeowners Association for harassment, filing false police reports, and attempted conversion of property, trying to exercise control over property they didn't own. We included every board member individually as defendants. The Homeowners Association's lawyer contacted us within days, wanting to resolve this amicably. Turns out the board members weren't too happy about being personally named in a lawsuit. During discovery, we found out what sparked this whole mess. The Homeowners Association Board had been looking at ways to increase revenue. They decided to try incorporating nearby properties into their Homeowners Association to collect more dues. They actually had a written plan targeting several properties around the development, starting with mine since I was the closest. They genuinely thought they could just decide to extend their authority over neighboring properties without any legal basis whatsoever. When confronted with this document during depositions, Karen tried to defend it. "We were just trying to maintain neighborhood standards and property values. These outside properties affect our community's appearance." My lawyer responded, "So you decided to harass my client and file false police reports because you don't like how his property looks?" "We weren't harassing anyone. We were just enforcing our rules. Rules that don't apply to his property, as you've known from day one." The case never made it to trial. Once the board members realized they could be personally liable for damages, they quickly agreed to settle. The terms included a substantial monetary settlement, can't disclose the exact amount, a legally binding agreement to never attempt to exercise any authority over my property, a public apology to be published in their community newsletter, reimbursement of all my legal fees, agreement to pay fines if they ever harass me again. The best part? The rest of the Homeowners Association members found out about this debacle and were furious about their dues being used to pay the settlement. The entire board was voted out at the next election. But I'm not done with the story yet. The fallout from the lawsuit had some unexpected consequences. After the settlement and board replacement, I thought things would finally quiet down. For about 2 months, they did. Then I started hearing from my neighbors. It turned out my property wasn't the only one the old board had targeted. 3 other homeowners on surrounding properties contacted me after reading about the settlement in the community newsletter. They'd received similar harassment but hadn't known how to fight back. One elderly couple had actually been paying the Homeowners Association's illegal fines for months, thinking they had no choice. I put them in touch with my lawyer, who helped them recover their money and get similar agreements protecting them from future harassment. The elderly couple actually cried when they got their money back. It had been almost $2,000 in bogus fines. The new Homeowners Association board has been much better. The new president, Mike, actually came over to introduce himself and apologize again for his predecessor's behavior. "I just want you to know we're mortified by what happened," he said. "We're implementing new policies to make sure nothing like this ever happens again." We ended up having a good conversation about property rights and responsible community leadership. He seemed like a decent guy who genuinely wanted to do things right. But here's where it gets really interesting. About 2 weeks ago, I got a call from a reporter at our local newspaper. Apparently, my case had caught their attention, and they were investigating similar Homeowners Association overreach incidents in our area. "Your case wasn't unique," the reporter told me. "We've found several homeowners associations in the county trying to extend their authority beyond their legal boundaries. Would you be willing to share your story?" I agreed, and the resulting article was eye-opening. It detailed multiple cases of homeowners associations attempting to exercise authority over non-member properties, often targeting elderly or non-English-speaking homeowners who weren't aware of their rights. The article sparked a countywide investigation into homeowners association practices. The county commissioners are now discussing new regulations requiring homeowners associations to clearly mark their boundaries and prohibiting them from attempting to exercise authority over non-member properties. Karen and the other former board members tried to defend themselves in the comments section of the online article, which backfired spectacularly. Karen actually wrote, "We were just trying to maintain community standards. These non-homeowners association properties are eyesores that bring down our property values. Someone needs to control what these people do with their land." The responses from other readers were savage. My favorite was, "If you want to control what people do with their property, buy it yourself. Otherwise, mind your own business." Last week, I got a letter from a homeowners' rights advocacy group asking if I'd be willing to speak at their annual conference about standing up to homeowners association overreach. I agreed. If sharing my story can help other homeowners protect their rights, it's worth it. As for my property, those chickens the homeowners association complained about are now laying more eggs than I can eat, so I've started giving away the extras to my neighbors, including several Oak Grove Estates residents who specifically asked for them. My vegetable garden is thriving, my work truck still parks in my driveway, and my grass stays exactly as long as I want it. The police haven't been called to my house for homeowners association complaints in months. In fact, one of the officers who had to respond to all those false complaints now stops by occasionally to buy eggs. Karen moved out of Oak Grove Estates last month. Apparently, she couldn't handle facing her neighbors after the whole fiasco became public. I heard she bought a house in a neighborhood without an homeowners association. Ironic, isn't it? The whole experience taught me something important. Standing up for your rights isn't just about protecting yourself. It's about preventing others from being victimized too. Sometimes you have to fight back, not just for yourself, but for everyone else who might face the same problem. And to any homeowners association boards thinking about expanding their coverage area, remember my story. Those property lines exist for a reason, and no amount of violation notices can change that. Update, 6 months later. A lot has happened since my last post, and I wanted to share how everything turned out. The county investigation into homeowners association practices I mentioned actually led to some significant changes that affect everyone in our area. First, remember that newspaper article about homeowners association overreach? It went viral in our state and caught the attention of our state representatives. 2 months ago, they passed what they're calling the Homeowner Protection Act, which puts strict limits on homeowners association powers and includes heavy penalties for harassment of non-member properties. The law requires homeowners associations to file official boundary maps with the county, provide clear documentation to all members showing exactly which properties are included, pay triple damages if they try to enforce rules on non-member properties, cover all legal fees if they lose lawsuits against homeowners. The elderly couple I mentioned got more than just their money back. Their story particularly outraged people, and they ended up filing their own lawsuit with help from my lawyer. They won a settlement that was actually larger than mine because of their age and the emotional distress involved. The former board members had to pay this one out of pocket since the new Homeowners Association board refused to use association funds. I spoke at that homeowners' rights conference, and it was eye-opening. I met dozens of people who'd faced similar situations. One guy had an homeowners association try to force him to tear down a wheelchair ramp he built for his disabled wife, even though his property wasn't part of their association. Another had been harassed about her home-based daycare business. The conference organizers asked me to help create a guide for homeowners dealing with homeowners association harassment. We put together a step-by-step handbook that includes how to document harassment, sample cease and desist letters, what legal documents you need to prove your property status, when to involve law enforcement, how to find a good real estate lawyer. They're distributing it free online, and it's already helped several homeowners stand up to similar harassment. Remember Mike, the new Homeowners Association president? He's actually turned things around completely. He invited me to speak at an homeowners association meeting as a guest, not a member, to help educate everyone about property rights and boundaries. The reception was surprisingly positive. Several members came up afterward to apologize for not speaking up sooner about the old board's behavior. Mike implemented new policies requiring board members to take a property law course before serving. He also set up an ethics committee to review complaints about board actions. The Homeowners Association's lawyer now has to review any enforcement actions before they're taken, which has pretty much eliminated frivolous violations. As for Karen, there's an interesting twist there. She tried to buy that non-Homeowners Association house I mentioned, but the sale fell through when the sellers Googled her name and found the newspaper article about our case. They didn't want to sell to someone with her history of property disputes. She ended up moving to another state entirely. The other former board members haven't fared much better. One had to step down from her job at a real estate agency because clients kept bringing up the lawsuit. Another lost an election for city council when his opponent made the Homeowners Association scandal a campaign issue. My property has become something of a local symbol. Remember those chickens the Homeowners Association complained about? I now run a small weekend farmers market from my driveway. Completely legal in our county, selling eggs and vegetables from my garden. Several Oak Grove Estates residents are regular customers, and we've built a real sense of community. Ironically, exactly what homeowners associations are supposed to promote. The police officers who had to deal with all those false complaints, they've become friends. One of them actually helped me expand my vegetable garden, and another bought some chickens of his own after seeing how well mine were doing. The county commissioner who spearheaded the Homeowners Association investigation called me last week. They're putting together a task force to review and update all local property regulations, and they want me to serve as a citizen representative. I accepted. Someone needs to speak up for individual property rights. My lawyer says our case has been cited in 3 other lawsuits against homeowners associations in neighboring counties. It's becoming a precedent for dealing with homeowners association overreach, which feels pretty good. The whole experience has taught me that standing up for yourself can have ripple effects you never expected. What started as defending my property rights ended up helping change laws and protect other homeowners. To everyone dealing with homeowners association harassment, document everything, know your rights, and don't be afraid to fight back. You're not just standing up for yourself, you're standing up for everyone who might face the same situation in the future. As for me, my property stays exactly as I want it, chickens, vegetable garden, work truck and all. And now I have a stack of no homeowners association jurisdiction signs, courtesy of the county's new regulations, posted along my property line. Haven't had a single violation notice since. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's making sure no one else has to go through what you did. That's what real justice looks like. The next one is a malicious compliances story. My girlfriend was having issues with her micromanaging boss and made me remember this orchestrated malicious compliance we did back around 2003. 04 when I was working for a consulting company. The client we were working for was a bank that had us working from the -2 basement, which consisted on a warehouse full with ATM replacements parts and another retrofitted warehouse with desks for us. You can imagine the type. Flickering neon lights, ventilation columns. Only thing resembling a window was a poster of a window the consulting company hung up on one wall. Cell phones weren't that common then, internet was kinda on, but everything was blocked because of the bank's firewall. We had to access Google via IP address. Working there was hard, only distraction was having a talk around the water cooler and going upstairs to get a coffee. We were like 30 people, split into 2 big teams doing COBOL and one smaller one doing web, .NET, and whatever else somebody asked them manager to deliver. I was part of the smaller one. The client asked us to track how long it took to finish each task. This was handled by each of the 3 team leaders, and people had a little bit of leeway on how to report hours spent. So, each team member would tell team leader whenever a task was finished and how long it took. It worked pretty well because team leaders were chill and the guys were serious and didn't slack much. The manager, let's call him Micromanager since he was all about micromanaging, but also because he was short AF, calls me one. I was kinda jack of all trades back then. And my team leader, TL as in team leader, but also he was tall AF, so too long, one day and says, "Look guys, I have a feeling we are not working hard enough. I need to be able to report the exact amount of time we spend on each task to the client. I want you to have some kind of software so people can input the time they spend on each thing." TL tries to explain that the current system in place works rather well, and there's no need to change the status quo, that the numbers were accurate and such. Micromanager says that it's not enough, that people are wasting time, and he wants accurate tracking. I was like 22, 23 at that time, first job, but TL had a knack for malicious compliance, so he designed the system. It consisted on a little traffic light in the taskbar. Red meant you were assigned, yellow meant a temporary stop, green meant unassigned. In order to change from one color to the other, a pop-up appeared, and you had to input the reason for the change. Then we created a web page that summarized and presented the data anonymously. It also had an export button so Micromanager could check and use it to report himself, faster than how the team leaders were doing it. At least that was Micromanager's idea. We installed this in every computer and showed how it worked to Micromanager. He was happy and told us to explain the system to the team in order to start the trial run of the idea right away. So we did. TL gathered every single team member and told them that Micromanager wanted an exact tracking of each one. He repeated time and time again the word exact, like probably 50 times in 5 minutes. He also said that the next day would be a trial run for the software. So 30 team members understood right away and complied, in an exact way. Here's an example on some of the things I remember. I might remember some of this one's a little embellished, it's been a while. As highlights from the report, with time added up, after the trial day. Arrival, taking coat off, no hanger available, tried to hang it on top of other coat, both fell, 5 minutes. Cough attack, had to get a glass of water, 5 minutes. Joke, morale booster, 2 minutes. Lost track of thought, realized I was looking at the poster of a window instead of a window. 3 minutes. Gone to the toilet. This was like 400 minutes or so, 30 people, 2 times in the day or so. Discussing last night's football match. 50 minutes. Air too cold. Had to ask maintenance to up the temp. 4 minutes. Somebody asked temp to up the temp. Now everybody is sweating. Had to ask them to lower temp. 2 minutes. Inputting change of state in traffic light app. Something like 2 hours in total. And the list kept going and going and going. The real data was also there, but it was practically unusable. Before leaving the office, TL called his team and we had a really good laugh reading the list. The next day, when we arrived, Micromanager called TL, told him something, and TL asked me to uninstall the traffic light app from every computer. The next one is an entitled People's Story. We bought our house we are in 8 years ago. 2 months ago, my husband passed away from cancer. We are financially secure, but when we moved in, we started meeting the neighbors after we were settled in. There was one little girl who was about 4. As she got to know us, she started spending a lot of time with us. We took her on vacations, dinners, shopping, and parks, etc., etc. This little girl F even spent the night with us. I spoiled her and got her many treats and clothing and gifts. We then met her older sister, 10-ish, who started asking for the same things, which I kept giving them sodas, snacks, and food, etc. She soon started bringing her other friends over. I finally decided to put a stop to her and her friend 11 and told them I am cutting this gravy train off because I have to go shopping more often than I wanted to. It was getting old, and I even complained to the parents of them about the older kids hoping they will stop their kids, but of course they didn't. So 3 years ago, the older sister, R, asked me what I am buying her for Christmas this year. I told her that that's not happening anymore. The same night she tried to set our house on fire, was going to call the cops, but the mother said it would be too extreme and she will deal with her and she won't be allowed to go anywhere for 2 months and she will take away her phone, etc. I saw her going everywhere the same day and the days following. 5 days after I talked to her mom about it, R sent me a text asking for $15. No apologies, nothing, just straight out, do you have $15? I forwarded that text to her mom and nope, nothing. So I stopped acknowledging her when I saw her anywhere, just ignored her. She started tossing things in our swimming pool. My husband told them that he was done with their child and he put more security cameras around our house. She has major anger issues. She tried to get her guy friends to take out the cameras, and of course we saw that and called the cops and showed them the proof. They talked to the boys who said R had offered to let them feel her up if they damaged our cameras. My husband said if they ever come close to our home or vehicles, they will be carried away in a body bag, which scared them. The family rented their house out and moved far away. But 6 months ago, they moved back into their house. I still ignore the free moocher. She kept sending F over to ask for so many things, which mostly included food, but not limited to. So she now knows that I won't budge. Plus, now she is 17 and F is 12. The mother kicked the older monster out because she couldn't handle her. She steals from everyone and anyone. Stores, parents, friends, and neighbors. I blame the mother for not disciplining her when she should have. Now, F has started following in the footsteps of her older sister as far as wanting snacks and drinks. She asked for bottled water many times. One day I told her that she should drink tap water, and she said she hates the tap water, and she too started bringing a friend around. I saw the friend L one day outside looking very hot. She lived several streets away, so I gave her a bottle of Sunny D. She left, and within 5 minutes F was on my door, ringing the doorbell frantically and trying to open the door. I was watching from the cameras while I was handing some insurance claims for my husband's passing. I was emotional and I ignored her. They left, but as I am watching, she took her much younger friend's juice and she poured it all out. I guess her thinking was if I can't get any, then she shouldn't either. Now F is a very nice and a thoughtful girl, but since she knows that I like her, she can just ask for anything she wants. Again, it's gotten old. 2 days later, they both came to my door in the guise of checking on me, but when I didn't offer them anything to drink, F started talking rather loudly and she said, "I want Dr. Pepper!" While her friend just as loudly saying, "Me too! I told F that. Both your parents work, ask them to buy it for you." She looked shocked and said, "But I thought you loved me." I said that doesn't mean that I will give you things anytime you want. The younger friend had seen my DoorDash delivery once. We had gotten KFC, and she told F that we had KFC and they came to ask us for some. I told her we got 2 bowls, and my daughter and I shared, and my son had one, and there was no chicken. The mother is very aware of this, demands that her kids make from the other neighbors. She has been separated from her husband for many years. She can buy high-end designer handbags, but other than giving her kids food, she won't buy them anything extra. I am grieving, and these people are now asking me for firewood to keep their house warm. It's not my job to do that. Their home uses oil for heat, and it's probably about the same price to fill it up as her Gucci handbag does. I have central heat, but I also love the fireplace in the cold days. She doesn't prioritize. I don't know what to do, because after telling them so many times that we aren't rich enough to feed the neighbors, I don't want to sell my house. They are freeloaders. The mom asked me to sell her our older van on a payment plan, but I refused to sell it. I am emotionally attached to it because that was my husband's commuter van. It's only 2 months since he has been gone. I am not ready to part with any of his things for now. Any advice? Thank you in advance. The next one is an entitled parent story. I mentioned in a prior post that my narcissist father in the 90s was angry that I was living out of a camper trailer, but not because I was using it for a home, but because I had a camper trailer. He'd wanted one for years and just never got around to it. On top of his other faults, you can add extreme procrastinator to the list. After I moved into my uncle's backyard with the trailer, my parents eventually found me. They forced their way in and stole my car keys and then my car. That situation had to be resolved with police. They eventually started demanding I be their free driver again for when they went out drinking, and that didn't go over well either. Eventually, my mother showed up to gripe at me about something else. By then, she was pretending to be over wanting my car, but it was pretty obvious she was not over it. On this particular day, she was mad at me because my father was ranting about my trailer. Apparently, he was pissed that I could just take it anywhere I wanted, and my mother told me she wanted me to get an apartment or something so my father would shut up about it. I told her no, I was getting way too good of a deal living out of the trailer. My uncle was hardly charging me anything, and I just had to do his yard work on top of the low amount of rent utilities I was paying. There's no way I'd give that up for an apartment. When my parents got their hands on another Vista Cruiser, it could tow things like my Caprice could. The Cavalier my father stole from me couldn't tow anything, and the small orange 70s car my mother had used for a while wasn't made for towing either. So when they got another wagon, they got one with a tow hitch. And as soon as they had it, my father wanted to start towing things, and then he decided all of a sudden he wanted to take my trailer camping. And he treated it like an FYI at first. My father, in his usual attitude, just showed up and bluntly told me he was going to use my trailer to go camping. I refused, and then he tried to order me as his son to let him take my trailer camping during the summer. I told him no again. It was literally my home, and I know him. He'd try to park my trailer at his house and then never give it back. My father tried to give me his Gorilla Man act, and I met it head on. Basically, two rednecks chest bumping. But I told him to his face that he was not getting my trailer ever and to go out and buy his own. The trailer also had a title in my name, and I wouldn't hesitate to call police if he took it. My old man, as usual, called me ungrateful, tried gaslighting, and finally left. My uncle watched practically the whole thing from a window with popcorn. He loved any time he saw my father miserable because my father was the golden child between them, and my uncle was treated horribly when he was growing up. So he was more entertained than anything else when he saw my old man having a tantrum over not getting his way. My father went out and rented a camper trailer for a few days. And then suddenly he didn't like camping anymore. He only wanted to do it because I had a trailer. And it was pretty obvious he wanted to claim it for himself. He honestly believed that anything that was mine was also his. And it took him several years to get it through his thick head that wasn't how things worked. And just about anything he ever borrowed from me after I moved out, I never got those things back. So I didn't trust him with anything. I personally didn't feel the need to do any camping because I was already living out of a trailer. But I gave it a try when I became a parent myself. And it honestly wasn't that fun for us. My ex-wife especially hated it, but I wouldn't say she was what ruined the experience. I did take that trailer to a couple of family reunions, though. That saved on motels. I was far from the only one in the family to do that, though. And my parents demanded I let them sleep in my spare bunk for free during our mid-90s family reunion. I said hell no. And my parents were humiliated right out of that reunion anyway because they doubled down over how I didn't hand over my second car to them. And my mother got slapped by a cousin for being a horrible parent. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.